They threw me out in the middle of a thunderstorm. Not with anger, no, that would have meant they still cared, but with cold, calculated silence, as if I were nothing but a moldy piece of furniture being tossed to the curb. My son Matthew screamed, "Leave," with the kind of disgust you reserve for insects. I stood there drenched, gripping the edges of my coat with trembling fingers, the water soaking through every layer, but that wasn't what made me shiver. What made me shiver was that he meant it. That was the night I died on the inside. And that was the night something else inside me began to live a flame I didn't know I still had. I was done being pitied, done being silent, done being thrown away. My name is Margaret Hensley. I'm 68 years old. I was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer 2 years ago. The doctors gave me a year. I gave myself 3. I'm living on borrowed time, and now I understand that time isn't something you share with people who don't want you around. I raised Matthew alone. His father left before the ultrasound showed a heartbeat. I scrubbed floors, took night shifts at the diner, sold my jewelry piece by piece to keep the heat on during winter. When I first found out I was sick, Matthew cried harder than I did. He swore to take care of me the way I once took care of him. I should have held on to that moment tighter, because that boy, my boy, disappeared somewhere along the line. It didn't happen all at once. That's the tricky part. It wasn't like he turned around one day and screamed, "You're worthless, no." It was slower, like water dripping on stone, a forgotten doctor's appointment, a missed birthday, a cruel joke from his wife Ashley that he never corrected. My place at the table moved from the head to the side to the kitchen, and then gone, just gone. Ashley never liked me, said I hovered, said I made him feel guilty for being happy. What kind of mother makes her son feel guilty for being happy? I cooked dinner every Sunday. I folded their laundry while chemo made me vomit. I even offered to help babysit when they talked about having kids before Ashley made it clear that Grandma Margaret wasn't going to be a welcome part of that picture. The day it happened, I had just come back from a doctor's appointment. The results weren't good. The tumors had spread. I'd stopped telling them the details. They never asked anymore. But I still brought Matthew his favorite soup, just like I used to when he was a sick little boy. He opened the door, looked at the soup, looked at me, and screamed the word that cracked my ribs from the inside. "Leave. Not Mom, not can we talk, not even a lie. Just leave." He slammed the door. I stood there, rain-pouring pain clawing my bones, soup spilled on the ground. And I whispered, "You'll regret this. You'll regret this." I meant it. But regret takes its time like rot in the walls or a leak you don't hear until the whole house caves in. I walked 2 blocks in the pouring rain before my legs gave out. I collapsed at a bus stop bench, coughing blood into my sleeve, shielding it from the eyes of strangers passing by. I wasn't just sick, I was broken. And yet through that pain, my mind spun through every moment that led me here. Every sacrifice, every night without sleep, every time I held him after a nightmare. Matthew wasn't born cruel. No child is. I raised him with every drop of love I had. When his classmates laughed at his stutter in 3rd grade, I sat with him every night reading Dr. Seuss until the words came out smooth. When he had pneumonia at 12, I stayed up for 3 days straight, cooling his forehead, whispering stories from the rocking chair. When he got his scholarship, I cried harder than he did. And when I was diagnosed, he promised, "We'll fight this together." At first, he kept his promise. He took me to chemo, made jokes in the waiting room, held my hand when I lost my hair. But somewhere in that 2nd year, Ashley's sighs got louder. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered when she thought I was asleep. "Your mom's always here. It's draining." I saw the hesitation in his eyes when I asked him for help getting to the bathroom one night. I heard the clicks of his phone during my coughing fits. The way his shoulders stiffened when I sat too long in the living room. I became furniture, no worse an inconvenience. Ashley was always there with a knife wrapped in smiles. "You're so strong, Margaret. I don't know how you do it," she'd say, while moving my medications to places I couldn't reach. "Don't worry, I'll clean your room," she'd chirp, then toss my letters and photos into the trash. She started calling me Matt's mom instead of Mom, like a stranger she had to be polite to at dinner. She poisoned him slowly, not with words but with looks, with sighs, with withheld affections unless he stood up for her. And he did. The worst part, I don't think Matthew even realized what he was becoming. That final week, I had asked him just once to take me to the hospital. My legs were too swollen. My breathing was rough. He said, "Can you call a cab instead?" A cab, after everything. The next day, I tried to cook soup. I wanted to remind him, not just of childhood, but of love, of care, of who I still was beneath the frail skin and the smell of ointments. He opened the door, and instead of memory, all I saw was disgust in his eyes. I became disposable, but I didn't leave empty-handed. I left with a name that would bring everything down. Her name was Ashley Morgan Whitmore. Before she became Ashley Hensley, she had a trail of wreckage behind her that Matthew never knew about. But I did. I learned to read people in the silence between sentences. Ashley wasn't just manipulative, she was strategic, calculated, dangerous. I didn't snoop at first. I had too much dignity for that. But after the fourth time my medication mysteriously went missing after the fifth accidental power outage in my room, I stopped pretending I was imagining things. One day while they were out, I limped to the office, pain shooting through every nerve. I opened Matthew's desk. Inside were Ashley's old college documents, half-finished resumes, a journal, and one thick folder she had clearly forgotten about. Inside were eviction notices from 3 apartments, all under different names. Credit card debt in 5 figures, 2 restraining orders, one name scrawled again and again in the court records, Ronald Whitmore. I didn't know who he was at the time, but the charges next to his name made my skin crawl: domestic violence, financial abuse, identity theft. Ashley had been married before, and she never told Matthew. I made copies, every page. I didn't plan to use them, not out of kindness, out of fear. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I gave her the benefit of the doubt, she'd come around. Maybe she really did love Matthew. Maybe I was just a burden clouding her judgment. But then she started speaking for him. Matt doesn't want you sitting at the dinner table anymore. It's too depressing. Matt thinks you should stay in your room when guests come over. Matt said you've become a little toxic. And my son, my sweet, foolish son, never corrected her, never looked me in the eye again. Ashley took everything. Not just my room, not just my space. She took my boy. She replaced me in his heart like an updated operating system. And the worst part? She smiled every time she did it. That smile, the kind that said, I win. I tried to confront Matthew once, quietly, gently. She treats me like garbage, I said. She's changing you. He didn't shout, he didn't cry. He just said, you always make it about yourself. Maybe that's why Dad left. That broke me. And then came the birthday party. Ashley's birthday. I wasn't invited, but I still baked a cake. A recipe she said she liked once in passing. I rang the bell, smiling through the weight of my body. When Matthew opened the door and saw me standing there, he didn't say thank you. He didn't even take the cake. He screamed, leave, right in front of his friends, his coworkers, his new family. They laughed, and Ashley whispered just loud enough for me to hear, I told you. You're nothing now. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a feud. This was war. I didn't go far that night. I stayed in a motel off the freeway, the kind with flickering lights and moldy curtains where the bed creaks even when you breathe. I couldn't sleep. The anger burned hotter than the cancer in my gut, not just at Ashley, but at Matthew, my son, the boy I once rocked to sleep in a blanket covered with ducks, the boy who begged me not to die the first time I came home from the hospital. Now he wouldn't even open the door. That night, I opened the manila envelope I had kept hidden for over a year. My fingers were shaking, but not from illness. This time it was clarity. I had never planned to use it, but everything has its season, and some truths are too big to keep buried. The next day I made 2 phone calls. The first to a woman named Naomi, Ashley's old roommate. She had left a comment once under Ashley's Facebook photo years ago, then vanished. It took some searching, but I found her. When I told her my name, she paused, then said, "You're her mother-in-law." I said yes. She replied, "Then I'm sorry, but I'll tell you everything." And she did. Ashley had drained Ronald's bank account 2 months before filing the restraining order. She'd used aliases to take out loans in his name. Naomi had witnessed it all, how Ashley practiced fake tears in the mirror-rehearsed speeches for court, and even manipulated a therapist into testifying on her behalf. She's a narcissist, Naomi said, and a brilliant liar. The second call I made was to my attorney, Harold. He had drawn up my will years ago. I asked him one question. Is it still legal to rewrite a trust? Yes, he said. Why? I didn't answer. Over the next few days, I gathered everything documents, testimony, and the photos Naomi sent me. I scanned each piece, uploaded them, and drafted a single email addressed to Matthew. The subject line was simple: before you regret everything. But I didn't send it, not yet. I waited. Then came the call. From Matthew. Mom, I heard you've been staying somewhere else. His voice was tight, awkward, like a child caught sneaking candy. Ashley thinks we should talk. Does she? I replied flatly. She feels bad. We both do. No, Matthew, you feel caught. There was a long pause. Can we have dinner, just us? I agreed. I arrived at the restaurant 10 minutes early, dressed in my best. It was a simple white blouse and a blue scarf, but I wore it like armor. I looked him straight in the eye when he arrived. He looked tired, nervous. He started with small talk. I stopped him. You screamed at me to leave, I said. Do you even remember what you said? He lowered his gaze. I remember, I said. Then I pulled out the envelope and slid it across the table. Open it. He hesitated. I didn't blink. He opened it, and that's when I said the words they never expected to hear. You married a fraud, Matthew. His hands froze above the folder, fingers trembling. Page after page stared back at him. Ashley's former aliases, eviction records, court transcripts, and worst of all, the photos Naomi had sent me. One was a screenshot of Ashley laughing over Ronald's empty bank account. Another was a journal entry. Ashley's handwriting, unmistakably hers, bragging about how easy it was to play the system. He looked up at me, jaw tight. What is this? It's who she really is, I said. Not the woman who bakes gluten-free cupcakes and says she loves you. The woman who called you a weak mama's boy when you weren't home, who moved my pills and smiled when I screamed in the night, who told Naomi she'd get everything from you in 5 years flat. No, he whispered, voice cracking. She wouldn't. She already has. He ran his hand through his hair, chest rising and falling like he couldn't catch his breath. Why didn't you show me this earlier? Because I loved you too much to destroy your illusion, I said softly. But you destroyed me first. That hit him. He shrank back in his seat, suddenly small, no longer the man who shouted, "Leave in front of strangers," just a boy again. The boy I once protected from bullies, nightmares, and monsters. I didn't know, he whispered. You didn't want to. He covered his face. Oh God. I leaned in. She isolated you. She made you think I was the poison. But Matthew, when someone makes you choose between them and everyone who's ever loved you, they're the poison. His face crumbled. Tears welled in his eyes, but I didn't comfort him. Not this time. Is this why you're here? He finally asked. To show me I was wrong. No, I said. I'm here because I'm dying. I wanted you to know before I leave this world that I deserved better from my son. He went still. Wait, dying. I didn't want pity. I wanted dignity. I asked you for soup, Matthew, not a funeral. He stared at me like he didn't recognize the woman in front of him. And maybe he didn't. Maybe for the first time he was seeing me as something more than a burden. I'm sorry, he choked. It's too late for that, I said, standing. Please wait. I paused. She's pregnant, he blurted. I froze. The room shrank around us. I didn't know, not until yesterday. I met his eyes. Then you'd better decide what kind of father you want to be, because your child deserves better than lies. He nodded, defeated, broken, alone. I placed a second envelope beside his drink. What's this? My will, I said. I've made some changes. I walked out. In the parking lot, I looked up at the stars, and for the first time in years, I felt free. I spent the next weeks in hospice care, a quiet little room with a window overlooking a rose garden. The nurses were kind. They called me Ms. Hensley with soft smiles, unaware of the storm I had just walked through. Some nights I sat up in bed and watched the moon move slowly across the sky, wondering if Matthew had opened that second envelope. He had. 2 weeks after the dinner, I received a letter, handwritten, tear-stained. Mom, I've made a terrible mistake. I let someone else decide who you were to me. And now, I don't even recognize the man I became. I showed her the documents. She screamed, denied everything, then packed a bag and left. She said the baby isn't even mine. I'm sorry it took losing you to finally see you. Please, if there's still time, let me fix this. I love you. Matthew. I read it 3 times, then tucked it into my drawer beside the photos of him as a boy holding a paper crown, hugging me with sticky jam hands beaming in a 3rd-grade school play. He did come to visit. One afternoon, quietly like a boy sneaking into church late. He looked thinner, older eyes hollow with guilt. He brought daisies, my favorite. He didn't speak right away, just sat by my bed, hands folded like a schoolchild waiting to be scolded. You were right, he whispered, about everything. I reached for his hand. I was too tired for anger now. I had carried that weight long enough. I don't want to die angry, I said. He shook his head. I don't want you to die at all. Well, I smiled faintly. Some things aren't up to us. He visited every day after that. Read to me like I once read to him. Made bad jokes. sat in silence when the pain took my voice. He made sure I was never alone again. As for Ashley, she vanished. Word got out eventually. One of the women she'd conned came forward after I submitted the file anonymously to the authorities. There were investigation subpoenas. But that wasn't my business anymore. Some ghosts you don't need to chase. The day I closed my eyes for the last time, I did so with my son's hand in mine. Not the man Ashley molded, but the boy I raised who finally came home. He cried as he read the final line of my will at the service. To my son Matthew, this world took me from you once. Don't let it take you from yourself again. That was the last thing I ever gave him. And maybe, just maybe, it was the first thing that saved him. If you're reading this, perhaps you're a parent, or a son, or someone who's been silenced, dismissed, or replaced in the life of someone you gave everything to. Maybe you've been hurt by those closest to you, the people you'd have died for. Let me tell you something. Your worth is not measured by the way others treat you when you're weak. It's measured by the strength it takes to walk away from cruelty, even when it comes from those you love most. Don't let illness, age, or dependence convince you that you're less than. You have a voice, and sometimes telling the truth, even if it costs everything, is what brings justice home. Forgive if you can, but don't forget who you are, because one day they'll remember too, and when they do, let them find you not broken but whole. Your story isn't over until you say it is, with strength,